Let's start with a very interesting story from a horse splashes, calling a bad teacher's bluff. This is a story from back when I was a sophomore in high school, inspired by a recent Ask Reddit post about the worst teacher you've ever had. It's actually about my second or third worst teacher. So hard to choose, but definitely my most malicious example of compliance as a teenager. Background information. I grew up in a rural part of the Midwest and attended a school that was literally surrounded by cornfields on three sides. The district was so sparsely populated that my entire graduating class was only 48 students, and the local economy was mainly based on farming and steadily disappearing factories, so the residents weren't very wealthy. The combination of those two things meant that the school didn't receive much tax funding, which in turn meant that it had a lot of trouble attracting and retaining high-quality teachers. Somehow still found the money for a new sports field, but I digress. While I had several good, or at least well-meaning teachers who taught there because they'd grown up in the area, the majority were either new MED graduates looking for experience before moving on to higher-paying jobs, or the borderline incompetent ones who were transferred from other districts because they couldn't be fired due to tenure, and basically did as little actual work as they could get away with. The characters. Despite looking alternative, gothy at the time, oh how I cringe looking back on those hot topic-filled days, I always did well in school. I would have been the valedictorian of my tiny class if I hadn't gotten suspended for 6 weeks once. But that's a story for another time. Edit, story added. I made some money on the side by tutoring other students, which they usually just took as an opportunity to get the answers, but at least I tried to go step by step and teach them rather than just doing their homework for them. This will be relevant later. My friend L, who was also a strong student, has a small part in the story, and let's call the teacher in question Miss P. I mentioned above that many of the teachers were either inexperienced or lazy, but Miss P managed to be both. She had originally been hired as the elementary school nurse, but then the sophomore chem teacher quit at the last minute and the administrators figured, well, Miss P taught 1 semester of 4th grade science, so she'll be a good chemistry teacher, right? Right? Ron Howard. She wasn't. The incident. It would be a stretch to say that Miss P actually taught chemistry. She just read out of the teacher's edition of the textbook, distributed occasional worksheets, and dodged student questions because she didn't know her hydrocarbons from a hole in the ground. Not that people asked very many questions once it became clear that they probably knew more about the subject than she did, which she was perfectly content with. Anyway, one day Miss P was droning on about ionic bonds while I was sitting in the back of the classroom near the lab stations, talking quietly with L about something unrelated to class because we had already taught ourselves the material. Miss P noticed us, however, and called us out on it. Miss P, why are you talking in class? Note the wording. There wouldn't be a story to tell if she'd said, stop talking in class, instead, but she went for the rhetorical question. I was more direct than tactful at that age, which led to the first minor MC me. It's because we, Elle and I, already know this. Cue some snickering from the other students. Miss P definitely didn't appreciate my blunt honesty, especially since it addressed the elephant in the room, her lack of teaching skills. She could have salvaged the situation for herself by giving me detention for talking in class, or even saying, well, pay attention anyway. Zrania, Miss P. Oh, if you already know everything I'm teaching, then how would you like to teach the class? I'm sure you can see where this is going. Thus begins the titular malicious compliance. Me. Okay. And I did. The snickering intensified as I proceeded to walk to the front of the room, and, to Miss P's surprise and displeasure, teach a passable lesson on ionic bonding for the last half hour or so of class. The details are fuzzy now, but I remember drawing Lego/puzzle piece-esque cations and anions on the blackboard to visually show how the total number of charges needed to balance, doing examples that weren't in the teacher's edition, such as having one classmate name a cation, another name an anion, and then working out the formula for the compound, and making a dumb joke about tin oxide and snow. I'm sure I was awkward and disorganized at points, but I was a 16-year-old with no time to prepare after all. I didn't think about it at the time, but in retrospect, I'm sure Miss P was listening for any opportunity to correct a mistake or otherwise put me in my place. Apparently, she didn't find any. The aftermath, it would be two ER slash that happened to say that my classmates clapped and cheered once I was finished. But a few people did tell me in the hallway afterward that my lesson was a lot clearer than any of Miss P's had been. Let me be perfectly clear here. That is a very low bar. To any high scholars, or reasonably competent middle schooler, reading this, I'm sure that you could teach a better class than Miss P. She never addressed what had happened, but she tacitly let me talk with my friends in class for the rest of the year. Her contract wasn't renewed after that year, which probably had nothing to do with me, as her position was a stopgap to begin with. In my junior year, we had a new teacher, Miss M, who was thankfully friendly, motivated, and competent. She spent most of the first semester of Chemistry 2 doing remedial work to teach everyone what they should have learned in Chemistry. Then she left the next year to take a better paying job in a larger district. But so it goes. TL. DR. Bad teacher tried to shut me up by asking if I wanted to teach the class. I accepted. The malicious compliance was flawless. The teacher's bluff backfired spectacularly, exposing her incompetence while letting the student shine. By confidently teaching the lesson, they not only embarrassed her, but also gained classroom respect. A perfect mix of defiance, wit, and justice. The next story from Deadly Gerbil. Cut my job? Say goodbye to millions of dollars. I worked for a major US telecommunications company for over 10 years. One of the jobs I had there was as emergency overnight tech support for our major accounts. I'm talking about accounts like emergency services, traffic lights, the FBI, NASA, and the White House. I personally fixed the White House Chief of Staff's phone twice. All of this was handled by 11 people in a call center that was one of two in the country that were open all night, mainly for customers who were overseas. Because we were such a small team, and the people we dealt with were the overnight IT people at their various companies, we were on a first-name basis with many of the techs who called us. Then, one day, the VP of our company decides to step down as VP and take a job as the head of another call center. His brilliant idea is to make his call center the only call center for all business and government accounts in the country, including the ones my team handled overnight. Naturally, this meant dissolving my team. We were all very upset. We liked our job. Only the absolute best techs got to be on our team, and for good reason. When something we handled went down, it had to be taken care of fast, and some of the systems we dealt with were so obscure or old that no one at the company except us and our daytime colleagues even knew they existed. This also meant that we had to be ready to answer at a moment's notice, so we spent most of the night doing nothing, just waiting for a call. The companies and government entities paid extra for this quick response. Even so, over the years, my team kept getting assigned more and more little jobs to do between calls, which we handled easily because, well, we were the best. It was almost my dream job. So when we get word that our jobs are going to this other call center that, until now, wasn't even open overnight, we were upset. Yet most of my team was still pretty supportive. We offered to train the new techs at the other call center. Some of us even offered to travel there for a week or so to do it, but we were all turned down. Our last week on the job comes, and we're there mainly as backup for the new team in the other call center. We're not being routed calls, but we're ready on chat if the new guys have any questions. The questions start coming in, and they're not what we expected. Instead of asking about obscure, outdated systems that no one but us even knew about, the new team is asking us about things like how to fill out a timesheet for a shift that starts before midnight and ends after. And this was their supervisor asking me. We end up answering really basic questions that anyone at our call center, much less anyone on our team, would have known, and we all got a bit worried. Then the supervisor who asked me about the timesheets asks how many calls we typically get in a night, and I say, between 2 and 5 per person, usually. Then he asks how many people were on my team. 11, I say. 8 to 10 on any given night. Oh, the supervisor says. We have 33. I wondered why we were getting so few calls. They didn't have to do the little tasks my team did between calls either. They couldn't. They weren't even trained for the calls they were getting. The next week, my team was transferred into the normal overnight call queue, handling boring calls from people who didn't read or listen to the directions we gave them about how to make their phones work while overseas. Sigh. A week after that, other regular overnight reps start asking me and the other former elite reps questions about systems that only we would know about. Suspicious. A few days later, I get a call transferred to me, and it's one of the overnight IT guys from the major accounts. I ask how he got hold of me, and he says that the first guy he talked to transferred him to me. Turns out, of course, that the untrained reps at the new call center were still untrained, so they were just dumping the calls into my call center's general queue and hoping that out of the 60 or so techs working there, the one who'd pick up would be from the former major accounts team. Since 3 of our 11 people had quit when our team was dissolved, the odds of that were pretty damn low, which meant it took multiple transfers, which meant they weren't getting the help they needed in the time frame my company was contractually obligated to provide. I went to the director of my call center to let him know about this, hoping it would mean that since the new team was failing that hard, the company would see reason and reinstate my team again. Nope. My director informed me that the team would not, under any circumstances, be reinstated at our call center. I could tell he was not happy about this at all. So then came the malicious compliance. My director told me, and every other overnight tech at my center, that if we were transferred a call for a major account, we were not to touch it, as we were not authorized to handle those accounts. The next night, the accounts wouldn't even open for us, because our security clearance had suddenly been revoked. We were to transfer all such calls back to the correct queue. We were also instructed to forward any correspondence sent to us from the new major accounts team to our supervisors, whether chat or email. In a few days, the transfers to our center stopped. Now, I wish I could say that the company saw the error of its ways, my team was reinstated, and everything went back to the way it was. But it didn't. Instead, the company hemorrhaged major accounts like crazy. We lost accounts whose monthly bills were in the millions of dollars due to our failure to keep the terms of our contracts. Barely a month after it was created, the overnight team at the other call center was disbanded, and the jobs outsourced. Then the outsourcers started transferring the calls to my center. Again, I went to our director, hoping against hope my team would be reinstated. Nope, but the transfers stopped. Again. And the company lost even more multi-million-dollar accounts. Last year, the company announced the layoff of tens of thousands of employees. I wonder why. I saw the writing on the wall and got the hell out with the best severance package I could. So did my call center director. He was no fool either. All because some idiot executive had a bright idea and not even the slightest clue how to execute it. Edit. Thanks for the votes and awards. I especially love how people have listed basically every major telecom in the US as a possible example of this level of idiocy. Just goes to show that it's a systemic problem. I was afraid people might find this story too boring or depressing. It has a happy as ending though, because thanks to my generous severance package, I am now able to pursue my actual dream job of being a professional writer. The malicious compliance was flawless. Strictly following orders led to the company's downfall. By refusing to assist untrained replacements, contracts worth millions were lost. It was a masterclass in letting incompetence implode while securing the best exit possible. Absolute perfection. The next story from Dramatic Dash, but Dash aware. You want to know where I am at all times? Your wish is my command. I've been lurking on this sub for a hot minute, and I saw a post that reminded me of my own MC story. Sorry for any formatting issues since I'm on mobile. This happened about 8 years ago. 1 year into just my first job, paid internship, clerking gig, IDK, what to call it. The firm that I worked for had a part-time program for law students so they could work and gain experience while in school. Very common in my country. I loved my job, I was very grateful for the opportunity to learn and grow, and I really enjoyed the work I performed. The thing was, I had classes both in the morning and the afternoon, night, and my school was at a different side of the city, about 8 miles away, that could turn into hours of traffic during rush hour in a city with 8 million inhabitants. So my days looked pretty hectic, as something like this. 5:30 to 7. Get ready and drive to school. 7 to 9. Class, 9 to 10-ish. Drive to work. 10 o'clock-ish to 1700. Work. 17 to 18. Drive to school. 18 to 22. Classes. Then I would try to study for 1 hour after class, and I would often eat while driving. During my first year in the program, I had more than proved myself and earned my place. I was that 19, 20-year-old idiot, type A overachiever that knew no boundaries. I had worked weekends, pulled all-nighters. Literally, I would leave school at 10 fucking p.m. and go back to work. Worked full-time in the summers without more pay, anything I had to do to keep the associates happy so they'd keep teaching me. As I was wrapping my first anniversary there, the perfect storm of awful rolled around. On the academic front, I started a new semester, and twice a week in the mornings, I had a teacher who was awesome but would finish class 20 to 30 minutes late. On the work front, a new partner joined the firm. Let's call him Mr. Asshole, AH for short, and kind of took over as unofficial managing partner. He was the typical old-fashioned lawyer that should be extinct by now. He could barely use Microsoft Word to type a contract and would pass out at the sight of an Excel sheet. He had this weird obsession with punctuality while simultaneously being late to everything. Plus, he moronically believed that by having a bunch of people warming up chairs, he would magically make money. So instead of investing time on client development, he would just spend endless time and effort on bullying everyone around the office. To make matters worse, since other people spoke highly of me, he decided to pay special attention to me. Unsurprisingly, shortly after Asshole joined the firm, started struggling. Now he could have tried to get new clients, send quotes by the deadline, and show up to meetings on time. But no, of course the firm was doing poorly because we clerk did not spend enough time warming up the chairs. So he became obsessed with us getting there by 10 a.m., especially me. The issue was that I could not get there by 10 because my teacher finished class late and there was no way I could drive across the city in rush hour in 30 minutes. So Asshole called a meeting with all the clerks and yelled at me in front of everyone because I was always late, more like 2 times a week, but whatever. The fact that I had gotten permission from the program committee did not matter. The fact that I was working 6 or 7 hours every day while I only had to work 5 did not matter. The fact that I would work weekends and late nights did not matter. I tried to explain, but he'll keep yelling at me and would not let me talk. Having had enough, I left the conference room straight into the office of every member of the Clark Program Committee. 1 junior associate, 1 senior associate, and 1 partner, to say the same speech. I am late because I have class. I have proven my commitment to the firm, but my education is important too. If 30 minutes late twice a week is too big of an issue, feel free to fire me. But I am not leaving class early. Then went to my desk to do my work. I guess the committee informed other partners and word got around of what was going on, small firm, because as I was getting ready to leave for school, Asshole came fuming to my desk and told me, "I know you are lying from now on. I want to know where you are at all times. And if I catch that you are slacking off or lying, you are fired and I will make sure no one will ever hire you." So cue malicious compliance. The next day, I woke up extra early, 5 a.m. sharp, took a time-stamped foot and sent it to both his email and phone, since I could not risk him not getting it and him not knowing where I was. I sent a time-stamped photo every 5 minutes captioning what I was doing like it was my own personal social media platform of 1 follower. The cherry on top was that my teacher had worked with Asshole in the past and obviously did not like him very much, so he let me take photos during the class and diligently send them to Asshole. I even went as far as taking a photo of the toilet door with the text "peeing," and then at the toilet flushing, "all done." While driving since traffic was really slow, I would send a photo and include how much I had moved during that time. Sometimes it was something absurd like 100 feet. As soon as I sent a photo of me at my desk, he shows up saying that he got the point, and I could stop. A couple weeks later, he simply stopped bugging people and started working from home or locking himself up in his office. My guess is I was not the only one to complain, and the other partner realized how dangerous he could be for the firm and asked him to back off. The malicious compliance was flawless, hilarious, petty, and overwhelmingly effective. By drowning Mr. Asshole in unnecessary updates, you turned his demand into his worst nightmare. It wasn't just compliance, it was a masterclass in proving a point while exposing his incompetence.